Can you guys hear me now? Got a yes from Megan.
Yes, this
yes.
is Judy, and we can hear you.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Good.
Can't change that. It
So
won't
I
let
was
me
about
talk.
to slide in, and no one would even hit me. So aside from that issue, there's another issue. Everyone that signed in under that link that I sent today, your phone is linked through, so please make sure that your phones are muted. And try to make sure everyone's muted here. Can you guys still hear us?
This is Judy. I can hear you, but I can't
Okay.
see anything yet.
Okay. All right. Sorry about that, everyone. All right. Is that better?
Yes, I can see it now.
Okay. I'm so sorry about that, guys. Let's go ahead and jump into it. So, are we still recording? We are recording. Okay, so we are recording. If you have a question, please send a message to Kylie in the chat. We'll get it addressed. Please make sure your phones are on mute. Do we have any questions before I start again? All right. So we are here for the 2020 NAHTF application guideline workshop. We will spend a little bit of time going through the introduction, mainly the cycle for this year, some of the allocation and the criteria. We'll spend a few minutes just overview with the application instructions. And then we do have Dan from Amplifon is going to do a walkthrough within the system for us. So I hope that everybody's had a chance to log into the full application and at least look around, mainly within the budget and the performance plan. I think we'll spend most of the time in the application on those two sections. And then just a couple of slides to follow through with that. And any questions along the way, let us know. So the 2020 application guidelines, DED's role for the NAHTF is as an investor and a partner. As an investor, we're always looking for quality applications, trying to select the best projects for the best investment of states' funding and resources. As a partner, we're always interested in helping our applicants, our grantees with input as soon as we're able to, whether that's with project design, with the project development and or implementation if projects are awarded. The 2020 application has changed quite significantly from the past. This is the first year that we have the electronic system, so I would strongly encourage any applicants to look through the application guidelines, reach out to housing staff, and always take a look at the qualified allocation plan and any specific questions to Amplifon. We do have resources on our website. That link there are YouTube videos and a few how-to documents that you can review if you have some specific questions in the system. Application guidelines, you can find them at this link right here. The link to the full application within Amplifon is right here. Do we have any questions right now? Okay. So for the 2020 NAHTF allocation year, we have an estimated $10.3 million of aid. Of that 10.3, 9,270,000 is specific to the housing funding cycle, which is also 90% of the allocation that is subject to the congressional district distribution. So that 90% by statute required to be distributed among the 3 congressional districts. So each district will receive, or should receive, $3,090,000. Within the housing funding cycle, there is $9,150,000 specific for housing projects and $120,000 specific for nonprofit technical assistance. The remaining 10% of the allocation is discretionary funds, which is $1 million for housing projects, and then we are intending to fund a regional or statewide nonprofit technical assistance application for $30,000 this year. There is also no match being used from the NAHTF this year for the home program. Also, any funds that may be left over or remaining at the end of the cycle, at our discretion, DED's discretion, may increase any of the above activities, or we may do an additional cycle or round similar to the demonstration program we did a couple years ago, or I think 2 years ago maybe. If that were to occur, we would provide notice to everyone. So the congressional districts, if you're not sure which district you're located in, you can go to this link here, enter your zip code, and it'll let you know. Any questions? Okay. So just a quick timeline here. We do have workshops scheduled. Everybody's here right now for the March 24th one. There is another workshop scheduled for April 16th at 10 a.m. And then additionally, we had planned on doing in-person workshops. Unfortunately, we're not able to this year, but we are going to do more of a working group WebExes with our regional applicants. So our program reps, I think, have already reached out to everyone that submitted an application or a pre-application. I think most of those are scheduled. If they're not, reach out to your program rep, and then we'll do more of a, like I said, it'll be kind of a working session of everybody's, or of pre-applications. The full application deadline is Wednesday, May 13th by 6 p.m. Central. This system will not allow any application to be submitted past this time, so do not wait to start your application within Amplifund. Just for fun, for the pre-application, I did watch, and at 6:01 it was gone. So make sure that you get in there as soon as you can and start working on it, and don't wait until the 13th to submit your application. Also, no hard copies will be accepted, and then awards will be distributed after July 1st. Any questions? Eligibility, governmental subdivisions, public housing authorities, community action agencies, community-based, neighborhood-based, and reservation-based nonprofit 501c3s or C4s are eligible applicants. For-profit entities are also eligible, but the applicant must be one of the above. Also, any properties or projects that have or will be financed with low-income housing tax credits are not eligible for 2020 NAHTF funds. Eligible activities, A full list, you can see it at Section 58706 of the Nebraska Affordable Housing Act. That is on page 5 of the application guidelines. Common ones that we usually see include new construction, rehabilitation, down payment and or closing costs, demolition and infrastructure. Those must be done with a housing project at the same time. So you can't submit for a demolition only or an infrastructure only project. There has to be some sort of housing project being completed during the same time frame. Acquisition, mortgage insurance, those are also eligible. And then this is directly from the Housing Act, projects providing housing in areas determined by DED to be critical importance. For the 2020 year, we did determine disaster recovery housing projects and workforce housing investment projects to have been determined as critical importance, and they're also included in this year's funding cycle. Ineligible activities. So any activity not specifically authorized under the eligible activities is ineligible. Common ones, or just a few to outline here, would be anything with furnishings, personal property, and then also mobile homes are determined as ineligible. Some eligible costs. New construction. If you're doing a new construction project, the plans and specs will have to be approved by the Department of Environment and Energy. So once you have any plans, I would get those sent over just to get the process moving on that. Also, new construction is going to require a site review. That must be submitted by April 17th. Rehab, reconstruction, site improvements, acquisition of property or vacant land, demo, relocation costs, and then housing management and project stock costs are also eligible costs. Any costs that you have, they're going to need to be reflected within the budget as well. Any questions? Okay. So grant amounts and contract periods. Housing projects, it is a suggested maximum of $500,000. We have also determined that with the COVID-19 situation this year, any housing project grant or application, it will be 36 months. In the past, there were specific projects that we only provided 24 months, but any housing project grant that's awarded this year will be provided 36 months. The nonprofit technical assistance, the max is $40,000, and that is over 24 months. The statewide or regional nonprofit technical assistance, that is $30,000, and that is for 1 year. So a question about the plans and specs. I go back to that slide. You'll need to submit your plans to the Department of Energy. I'm sorry, not the Department of Energy, the Department of Environment and Energy. Typically it goes to Bruce, and Bruce, I apologize if I mispronounce your last name. I think it's Hochschild. If you don't know where to send it, you can contact us and we'll help you out with getting it to the right location. So selection criteria in the process. So the application pools this year are the housing project and nonprofit technical assistance. Any application must meet the minimum threshold requirements and be financially viable. Program legislation first priorities do include any projects that serve the lowest income occupant, the longest period of time, and then any project located in the enterprise zone, opportunity zone, or an extremely blighted area. So the selection criteria for housing projects this year, there are 4 sections where narratives, questions, the project design is worth 100 points, need and impact is worth 100, project financing 125, and then capacity and collaboration is worth 75. Any project that is designed or eligible or specific to disaster recovery is worth 50 points. So for disaster recovery, you need to identify specifically how that project is going to assist with disaster recovery housing needs, the efforts. So all of that information should be within your narratives and clearly identified how it's specific to any disaster recovery. The affordability period, up to 25 points. If it's 5 years, there are no points. Anything 6 to 9 is worth 10. And then 10 or more years is worth 25 points. New this year, housing units or new units created, you can earn up to 25 points. So any one unit is worth 5 points. If you're building a duplex, 2 units, 10 points. And then matching funds, you can earn up to 50 points. So just the percentage of what match is provided. So every 1% is worth a half a point. Also, match is not required. It's just additional points if you are providing that. Any questions on the scoring or the criteria for housing projects? Okay. So the nonprofit technical assistance scoring, this is the same for both, just the regular and the statewide or regional wide TA applications. The goals and work plan are worth 200. Impact on housing production is worth 100. Sustainability is worth 100. And organizational and financial management is worth 100. So 500 total points for any TA applications. Threshold review. All applications are reviewed to ensure threshold review is met and the application can be considered for scoring and award. Failure to meet any of the requirements will result in the application not being scored or funded during the 2020 NAHTF cycle. So the threshold requirements are simply if an applicant submitted a pre-application, is it an eligible applicant? Are the activities eligible? And if the applicant has any open grants, have they shown significant progress with their drawdowns? So for any applications that do meet threshold, competitive scoring will be conducted. The applications will be scored and ranked statewide, and the highest scoring projects being recommended in the order they are ranked, with the best efforts to allocate not less than the 30% to each congressional district. There is a minimum score of 200 total points on the application to be considered for an award recommendation also. After July 1st, DED will announce the NAHTF awards. At that point, program representatives will reach out to any applicants that were awarded. They'll notify and schedule what's referred to as contract review. During the contract review, program reps, they'll work with applicants to clarify any information in the application. There may be some additional items required to be submitted. If items aren't submitted by the requested date, the applicant may no longer be eligible for the award. Any applicants that are awarded cannot begin project implementation or incur any project costs until after notice of release of funds. Additional cycles and sources, DED and the NIFA low-income housing tax credit application cycle. So the joint application, Home and National Housing Trust Funds. Again, there is no NAHTF home match for this year. If you have questions or you want to review the qualified allocation plan, it is at NIFA's website right there. I would direct any specific questions to Michelle Grimes or Sarah Dakota. Their information is available right there as well. And again, if there's an additional funding cycle, we'll notify applicants. Some resources, we do have the workshops. Reach out to your housing program staff, your program reps, anyone on the housing team if you have any questions. Amplifund, this is the same link that I had mentioned before. Within the system, there is a help button. If you click on that, you can get some guidance from there. And then forms or processes, you can always reach out to myself and Kylie. We do also have an FAQ document on the website. It will be updated here and uploaded again here by the end of the week. Your program reps, if you're not sure who your rep is, you can view this map that we have here. Christie is located out here in the orange, the western portion of the state. Laura is right here in the middle in the blue, the central portion. Barb Pierce, our new northeast rep, is up here in the pink. And then Nick Drapinski is down here in the green for the southeast. Lynn is our housing manager. Michelle, our home and HTF housing specialist. Myself, the NHTF and CDBG specialist. Kylie, the application coordinator. And then Kara is our compliance coordinator. Any questions? So, in order to be eligible to submit a full application, pre-applications were required to have been submitted. Those were required back on March 12th. We have our program reps have been working through them, reaching out to any of the applicants, trying to schedule or see if applicants need any assistance. So, again, just a reminder, if you're planning on submitting a full application and you did not submit a pre-application, you won't be eligible to submit one this year. A few instructions. So once you get into Amplifund and you are working on your application, all narratives, they should be thorough, concise, and within the defined character limits. The system will not let you go over the character limits. So if the limit is set at 10,000 and you have 10,001 characters, it won't let you submit the application at that point. And it'll always notify or let you know which section it is. DED, the department, we do reserve the right to verify all information within the application. And then pre-applications and full applications, they are prepared at the applicant's expense. Again, we do have a new electronic system this year, Amplifund. As you're working through the application, there are guided questions throughout. So it'll ask a question depending on the response specific to your application. It'll prompt any additional required fields or sections. So if you're not sure if you're required to put something in there, don't necessarily worry about it, because if you answer the questions, the system will make you put what you need in there. And then any sections that are designated with an asterisk, they are required. And then the due date, again, it's Wednesday, May 13th at 6 p.m. Central. And applications are not available to be submitted after that 6 o'clock deadline. So we have a question. If program reps will be reaching out to the grantee or the application preparer. So they'll be reaching out to whoever the individual was. So probably the preparer, the email that was listed in the pre-application. The program reps are pretty good with including everyone on the communication. So you should see, they'll notify the grantee and the application preparer. Another question, the pre-app wouldn't allow for paragraphs. So I think I'll let Dan address that question when we get into the system here in a minute. Yeah, I'll let him kind of discuss that when we get in there here real quick. Any other questions before we kind of move forward on it? Okay, so this is a quick outline of what the application looks like. It's a little cleaner once you get into the system, but the opportunity details page, the project information, and then the application forms. So there are 4 specific forms with questions, and then a further question section here, the budget template, and then the performance plan, and just a submit tab. So we do have a question. If there's an additional application cycle, is that still subject to the pre-application on March 12th? If there is an additional cycle, it'll depend on what the cycle is. When we did the demonstration program a couple of years ago, I don't think that we required a pre-application at that time, or the specific pre-application to have been from that year. So if there is an additional cycle, all that information will be made available when we send that out or when we make that known. Okay. All right, so I'm going to try to get this over to Dan here. Okay. All right, Dan, are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me okay, Evan?
Yeah, I can.
Excellent. All right, I'll get started. Thanks, Kylie, Evan, and the housing team for giving me the opportunity to be here today and do the walkthrough of the application. We will get started. I'm going to walk through the application, the full application, and the Amplifund applicant portal. We're going to talk about navigating through the different pages and filling out some of the answers and some of the required fields, kind of how to navigate between different question types. And then one big difference that you'll be noticing on the full application that wasn't present in the pre-app is the budget and the performance plan. So we're going to go through those sections and we're going to talk about how to fill those out as well. So when you click on that link that Evan provided in the slides, and that you'll be brought to the opportunity details page and you'll be prompted to log in. When you log in, please feel free to use the same login you used on the pre-app and you'll be able to start a new application. If you've not yet filled one out or if you're a new registrant, you'll have to register again. But since you all submitted pre-apps, just use the same login information you utilized on the pre-app. And you'll click on the project information section, or that's the first page that you'll be brought to. And on this page, you'll be filling out some information specific to your application. You'll be putting in the name of your application. So I just have it's kind of a dummy application I'm working with here. We have the total amount of award requested field. This field is asking for the amount that you're requesting from DED and also any match you're going to provide. So this is grant funded amount plus the match amount, if you're adding match. And this total amount of cash match field will allow you to break out the match accordingly here. So this is indicating that you're asking for $100,000, you're asking for $50,000 from DED, and $50,000 is going to be matched, and you're indicating that that $50,000 is here. So it breaks it out accordingly. If you were requesting $75,000, for example, from DED, and you were matching it with $25,000, you would still put in $100,000 here, and you would just change the match amount to reflect that. This way, the application. I'm sorry?
Hey, just real quick, I think some of our grantees kind of have a slower connection. So as you're going through here, try not to go so very quickly, just so they can make sure that they're following along.
Yeah, I apologize. I will do that for sure.
Okay.
Okay. So here's the application name field. I'm going to just take a quick step back because I was going pretty quickly. This first field that you're going to be asked to fill out is the total amount of award requested. This is the dollar amount that we need to put in here is the grant funded amount, so the amount you're asking for from DED, in addition to any cash match. So if you're asking for $75,000 and you're also going to match $25,000, then you put the total amount of award requested here as $100,000. There's other areas where you'll be able to break out the specific amount that you're requesting from DED, but here they want the total you're requesting from DED plus the cash match. In the total amount of cash match field here, you'll be able to indicate how much of this total amount of award requested is cash match. So in the example that I was utilizing here, it's $25,000 because I'm asking for $75,000 and I'm going to match $25,000. So the following section is the primary contact information. Some of this will populate based on your username and any credentials that you've filled out when you registered. So name and email address should auto-populate here. There's some other required fields like address, city, state, and zip code. The phone number is not a required field here, but you may be prompted to put this in at a later stage of the application. Now, once you've completed this page, you can save the information. This locks in any changes or any piece of information that you made here. You can also click Save and Continue, and it'll jump you to the next page. In order to move on and eventually to submit your application, this page will have to be marked as complete. So one of the options, one of the things you're going to see in the AmpliFund applicant portal is that every section, the ones that Evan mentioned before and the ones that we're seeing here, will have to be marked as completed in order to successfully submit your application. We will know when each section has been marked as completed by referencing this timeline up here. So this timeline here at the top provides you with a status of where you are as you're filling out your application. So we're currently on the project information section. That's why this circle appears here. As soon as I mark any one of these sections complete, we'll be able to see that there's a check mark that fills in the timeline. If I want to jump to anywhere in the application, if I want to go to the budget, I could just click here on the budget. If I want to go to the application forms, I can click here. So you can use this timeline to navigate to other areas in the system. If you click Save and Continue, it saves the information that you have here, and it just moves you to the next portion of the application that follows in sequence. But you also do still have that opportunity to kind of jump around utilizing that timeline. Since I'm really confident that all the information that I populated here is good, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to mark this as complete. Items can only be marked as complete if all of the required fields have been populated. So it allowed me to successfully mark as complete there because I was able to populate those required fields. If I realized that I did something wrong or I provided a wrong piece of information here and I want to come in and edit it, it's not a problem. You can always mark as not complete, come in and make a requisite change or add a piece of information here, and then when you're done and when you're ready to mark it as complete again, you can go ahead and mark as complete. So when we're ready to move on to the next section, we'll have the opportunity, like I said, to either go through the timeline here at the top of the application or to click Save and Continue, and it'll just move you to the next part of the section, which is application forms. So let's go ahead and click Save and Continue, and we'll move to the next section. Now, before we even start going through the forms that are available here in the application, I just want to point out that this project information section, where we just were, has a check mark in the circle because we marked it as complete. So again, it's a good way to check status as we're moving through the application. So in the application form section, it shows me here that I have 6 available application forms that need to be completed. I can go ahead and click on the first form to get started, and we can look at the general information page. So the general information page contains certain fields that we have to populate with specific guidelines. Name of the organization, here you'll put the name of your organization. As Evan mentioned in the slides, all required fields are marked with an asterisk, so you'll be able to notice that there. Some fields like phone number and tax ID have guidelines of how they need to be formatted. So this is showing me that I have a specific character limit and I have to complete a specific formatting in order to populate this field. On applicant type, utilize the radio buttons to choose which applicant type you are. You can choose only one. This is going to ask us here if the applicant's contact person is the same as the person registered in the portal. So when you first log in and when you're completing the information, I'm logged in as this person, it's asking, is the person listed on the application, do we want the contact person to be the same as this person? If yes, it's just going to prompt us to add a phone number. If no, it prompts us to fill out this information for who the contact person should be. So this allows us to fill out the application on behalf of somebody, or to fill out the application even if the organization or the applicant's primary contact person is not the person actually filling out the application. So if you select no, you'll have the ability to populate and indicate who that contact person is, first name, last name, address fields, city, state, postal code, email, and phone number, required fields just like it was on the previous page as well. Again, we're seeing some similar information down here. Applicant preparer information. Is the preparer different from the applicant? And here we have the ability to, again, indicate either yes or no. If I choose yes, then it's going to ask me for information specific to who the applicant is. And it's going to ask me the series of informational questions. If I choose no, it's just going to use the information that's already provided. So I filled out, let's say I want to click this as yes. I haven't filled out these pages yet. Now I can save the information that I already have filled out, and I can come back to it. And I can click save and just kind of save, lock these changes in here. I can click save and continue without completing everything, and it's going to move me to the next page. Or I can show you what happens if you try to click mark as complete and all the required fields aren't filled out. It's going to notify you one or more required fields have invalid entries. Please update your responses. And as soon as I save, or as soon as I try to mark it as complete, it's going to point out to me right away in red which fields are required and which are the ones that I have to get done until I can mark it as complete. So again, we won't be able to submit the application at the end if all sections and all forms haven't been marked as completed, and we will not be able to mark as complete if we don't fill out and complete all required fields. So in this scenario, I would want to go back and I'd want to make sure these are filled out before I can go ahead and successfully submit here. So let's move on to the next application form. If I click save and continue, it takes me to form number 2. So again, utilizing that save and continue button navigates you back or navigates you forward to the next form or the next section in sequence. You can also go up here and click on the application forms bullet, and that brings you back to this page where you can either navigate to the next form manually, or you can navigate and skip to any of these other forms as well. I am just going to go to part 2, to project details. I just wanted to show an example of what that would look like. So here we have some additional questions that need to be filled out when there's some conditional fields that exist also depending on our answers. So in this first part, will you be applying for more than one project? And if you select yes, then it provides you with this note of guidance that if you are applying for multiple projects, separate applications need to be submitted for each project. You can see if I choose no, then that note goes away, but that is true either way. It's going to ask us to populate the date for when the pre-application was submitted for this specific project. The date fields can be filled out by typing in the date in this format, or it could also be utilized by clicking on any one of these dates from the calendar button. If I scroll down, I have an additional project details section right here. And it's asking me the amount of NAHTF funds requested. So remember, I indicated previously in the project information page, when we were filling out the total amount requested, we were supposed to be filling out the total amount requested, the grant funded plus the cash match. I did mention there that there would be a question later asking and clarifying where we can enter in the grant funded. And this is where that question is. So real quick, I want to circle back to this project information page. Remember, this first page here that we populated, that we filled out, we put in the total amount of award requested. So this is grant funded plus cash match. And now in that application form that we were looking at, it's asking us for just the grant funded portion. I'm going to go back to the application form, project details. And now is where I can indicate how much I'm asking for of NAHTF funds from DED. And actually, I think I changed this in the example, so let's make that match up. So this is the amount I'm requesting of NAHTF funds regardless of if I'm including match or not.
Hey, Dan, before you go on.
Yeah.
We do have a question, and I want to make sure that I'm understanding. When you were talking about can you scroll up just a little bit?
Yeah.
So if you're applying for more than one project and then enter the date your pre-application was submitted, I think that the question is if that has to be done. Oh, I'm sorry, completely wrong. So the question is about the plans for the Energy Office or Department of Energy and Environment. Those plans have to be approved before release of funds. But I would not wait till after you're awarded or anything like that. I would start the process as early as possible. So the question didn't apply to what you were talking about. I'm sorry about that, Dan. But go ahead.
No need to apologize. Feel free to jump in at any time if I need to clarify something or if I'm missing any questions. So I actually appreciate that.
Yeah.
Okay. I think we were at the project description portion right here, which is our first narrative text box. During the slideshow presentation, Evan made a reference to having character limits. I have just some random text that I generated in here to show an example. So in the project description narrative, it's going to ask for a narrative for the project. We have to maintain the 1,650 character limit, and it has a counter right here, so it'll tell us. So if I wanted to come here and start again and keep going, I can say, "This is my new sentence." And you'll see that as I'm typing, the character limits are counting down, so it's letting me know what I have left here. I will also note that you can type these out and copy and paste in Word or from Note or anything like that. So you do have the ability to copy and paste into here as well. But as soon as you paste in, it'll notify you how you're doing on that character limit. So this is a required field. We have the district indicator section. So the first part of this is asking us choose the congressional district where the majority of our project is located. Here, I can choose either 1, 2, or 3. I choose 1 right here. I choose one of these options. On the next question, I can choose multiple. So choose all the congressional districts where your project is located. So this is where the majority is located, and this is just where all are located. And again, it says select all that apply. So if the majority of it's in 2, I can say 2, but I also have a project located in Congressional District 3. You can go ahead and check multiple boxes here if necessary. The service area also allows you to indicate which legislative district is in your service area. And it also allows you to indicate more than one. So if I need to choose legislative district 4, and 5, I can hold down Shift and click, so it'll encapsulate all of these right here. If I need to kind of jump around, then I can choose 1, hold down Control, and I'm still holding down Control as I'm clicking these other districts. So you have the ability to choose more than one. You can hold down Control to go and to choose multiple ones there. And if you're on a Mac, it's the Command button, as the instructions indicate here. So the next section here are the areas. So again, choosing from the drop-down list, you can indicate all cities and counties plan to be served within the project. So we can select from this vast drop-down list here. And again, the same rules and the same guidelines apply. If I would need to choose more than one, here's a village. Let me choose the city. I can hold down Control and I can click multiple in order to select multiple all at once. Again, if you're utilizing a Mac, it would be the Command button. So as I'm navigating down, NAHTF program legislation first priorities. Here is the first place where I'll be able to indicate the activity type, either if it's housing or technical assistance. You'll notice that certain options are going to appear if I choose housing, and different options will appear if I choose technical assistance. And you'll notice that is consistent throughout the application. There's other areas where you'll be prompted to indicate if you're applying for a housing or a technical assistance application. So if I choose housing, it's asking me all this information here about household beneficiaries. And you'll see now that I choose housing, these are all required fields. If I choose technical assistance, it's not asking me anymore about household beneficiaries, and those are not required fields. So right off the bat, we're seeing some key differences between applying for a housing program and a technical assistance one. So if it is a housing, then fill in all the beneficiary information here below 80%, below 100%, the number that are below 120, and then the total beneficiaries. And there's also this question about the affordability period of your project, where you can indicate if it's either 5, 6 to 9, or 10 or more years. And again, this one, we can only choose one option of the 3. But only if housing is selected. Remember, if it's a technical assistance, then all those questions go away because they're not pertinent to technical assistance. Now it's going to ask us about the enterprise zone. Is it located in an enterprise zone? Yes or no. Again, only one option can be chosen. Opportunity zone, yes or no. Only one option can be chosen. Extremely blighted area, yes or no. Only one option can be chosen. Again, I know that I did not fill out all of these fields here. So if I try to mark it as complete, it's not going to let me until I populate all fields. And I'm just going to populate them with some test information just for the purposes of today. So now I'll be able to go ahead and mark this section as complete. Now I can either save and continue here, and that would take me to our next application form, or I can just go back to my application form section and I can navigate to the next form that I want to fill out, whether that's application questions, or here I can fill out and input any leverage information if possible. At this point, I also want to point out the view on this application forms page that we're looking at. So it gives us a status bar, which allows us to view how we're doing and what kind of progress we're making on these application forms. If you've marked an application form as complete, it will show up here as complete. So we just worked on that last form together and we were able to mark it as complete. Here, you'll see that that first form we looked at, we started filling out information, but not all required fields were populated. So it's noted as in progress. Any forms that we have not yet clicked into and looked at are going to be under the new section. Another thing that I wanted to point out here too is that you'll have the ability to print individual forms. So if you've completed this page and you want to print out this individual form with your answers in it, then you'll be able to print that through here. And then also at any time, you'll be able to download the application and view it in a PDF format here. And then upon submit, you'll also have the ability at the end to print your fully completed application form. So I'm going to move on to the next part of our application forms, which are the application questions. So very much like we saw in the last form, it's going to ask us here what type of application we're filling out. Is this a housing or a technical assistance? And again, you're going to see that the questions and the required fields change based on your answer to this question. So if I choose housing, it's going to start asking me these questions about the type of proposed housing project, and then it's also going to change a lot of the questions that we're seeing down here as well. If I choose technical assistance, then you'll see those housing questions go away, and it also changes what I need to fill out down here for technical assistance. So we'll go through all that in a little bit. I'm going to go back up to the top, and I'm going to click on housing. Select the type of your proposed housing project. Home buyer, homeowner, rental. We choose only one. These are required fields. Is the proposed project for disaster recovery? If yes, then it's going to give us this guidance here about disaster recovery projects. If no, then that guidance goes away. So if yes, disaster recovery must be reflected on the narratives within this form. It's going to ask us housing program activities, and it says here select all that apply. So this is going to allow us to select multiple housing program activities. And I'm just selecting multiple to show you an example. If I scroll down, I can see, is there an additional eligible activity to the type of projects selected that are above? You choose yes. You do have the ability to type one in if there's an additional eligible activity that's not already listed here within the application. There's another required field that follows. Will your proposed housing project create new units? If you choose yes, then you'll have to answer how many new units will be created. The next section here is going to ask for applicant-specific uploads. That's when we have a technical assistance program.
Hey, Dan,
Yes.
scroll back up real quick,
Yes.
just to that applicant specific. That's just instructional information for just letting you know that, letting all the applicants know that you can upload 4 applicant-specific items to each narrative section. So it's there whether or not they choose technical assistance or housing projects, just informational for the applicants when they're uploading. If they're referencing something within their narratives, it's just information for them to use, guidance. So that's there regardless.
Excellent. Thanks for the clarification. So this is going to be there regardless. The project design section here is going to start asking specific questions about the housing program. So again, we're seeing these text box. It's going to ask us these specific questions that we have to populate in this narrative that we have with a character limit. So identify the project, the target population, where it'll be located, interest from potential beneficiaries, anticipated timelines. This I wanted to kind of put a bookmark in, and we can come and we'll see later, because there is a performance plan section of this application where you'll be able to also indicate milestones that can be tracked with dates that correspond to what we put in here in this question. So the performance plan section is coming soon, but that it should include part of the anticipated timeline, which is going to be in this narrative section right here. So when answering this homeowner narrative, again, we have a character limit of about 4 pages. We can type in here, and I can see that my character limit counter is moving. So again, required field, making sure that we stay within this character limit that's imposed upon us.
Hey, Dan.
Yes.
Just another blurb here. When we get to the regional workshops, we'll go over these sections a little more in depth, specifically like the questions and then the uploads. So if you see something right now and you have a question, let us know. But just as a reminder, we're gonna jump into this a little bit more in depth when we do the regional workshops. So if you haven't been in there, you haven't looked at the questions, or you haven't looked at the uploads or anything like that, just know that there will be more in-depth sessions on this than today. So just so everyone knows that right now.
All right, thanks, Evan. Our next section here is the program guidelines checklist. This is, you can click on this link here and you can download the checklist. So if I click on the program guidelines checklist, I'm in Firefox, so it's gonna ask me to open up the file, and it opens it up right there. I'll have to pull it onto my screen here, so if you need to see that program guidelines checklist, click here and you'll have access to it. Here, you'll have to upload the program guidelines checklist that you've completed. So in order to upload a file, it's relatively straightforward. You go to Choose File, navigate anywhere on your desktop where you need to find and where you save that uploaded checklist. I'm just going to upload something as an example. Double click on it, and that uploads the file in here. So the process of uploading files, very straightforward. Will your project require a site review? Again, here we have yes or no. Does it involve new construction, rental, rehab? Options, yes or no. If you choose yes, then you have another upload available to you here. And then there's some specific uploads that you can provide. You can name the attachment here. So if you wanted to provide a description of what you're attaching, then you'll be able to put that there. Click on Choose File, and just like we uploaded attachments before, you can upload anything you want to here and name the attachment with this label. The need and impact section here, again, text boxes that have character limits on it and that are required. So again, same applies, where just populate information. It's going to ask about housing study. Is it regional or county-wide? If you choose yes, then the housing study synopsis should be uploaded, and the upload process is the same here. There's an applicant-specific uploads section here, again, where you can provide names and you can label and attach different documents
Hey, Dan,
Yeah.
just another quick thing here. The applicant, any uploads that you upload, make sure that the upload has an actual name and it's not like, say you scan something from your scanner to your computer and it's 1234 AB5 something. Make sure it has the name of the upload on the upload name as well.
The project financing section, again, asks to provide specific information and provides text boxes that allow us to input information here. Here it's going to ask us if there's leverage, and it's going to ask us to upload leverage documentation. Here it's also going to ask if your project involves any of this information, and if you choose yes, it's going to ask for the pro forma. You can download the pro forma spreadsheet and then complete it and then upload it again. There's more applicant-specific uploads here, and like Evan said, make sure that you're providing an attachment name along with that uploaded document. It's going to ask again here if there's cash match. If you choose yes, then it'll ask us to break out that cash match amount and indicate how much there. So whatever we put on that project information section at the beginning, which was $25,000, you can put in here. And it's going to ask for a narrative regarding the match. More questions with the text boxes, character limits, and required fields. So I have some that are filled in here. And we have,
So the public hearing, hopefully everybody saw the notice that went out. I think that was late last week. We are not requiring the public hearing to occur. There was guidance in the email that the application still needs to be available to the public, and there should be feedback or input received, or applicants should be attempting to get input from the public. So when you get to this section, we request that you guys upload a summary of how it was made available and any input that was received. If there was no input received, make sure that you note that. The way that the system was set up, we obviously didn't know everything was going to happen at the time. So when you upload these three sections right here, just upload the same document to each section. So for the public hearing, public notice, the sign-in sheet, and the comments, just make sure that it is the summary of how the application was made available and any feedback or input received from the public. Just upload that same document 3 times. Unfortunately, we're not able to go in and make that change right now. So if you guys have other questions about that, let us know. But I wanted to bring that up while we're here in the system looking at the public hearing section. So go ahead, Dan.
Thank you, sir. And that takes us to the end of this section. So again, we won't be able to mark as complete because I know that there is a significant amount of required fields that did not populate. I can save those changes in and move on to my next application form, which is the leverage form. So here is where, if you do have leverage funds, you can indicate that on this application form. Does your project have leverage? Yes or no. You'll see if I select no, okay, you can just mark as complete and move on. If I choose yes, then we have to fill out total amount of leverage, and then indicating total project cost, which would include the leverage, and here's a leverage table to be filled out here as well. So if you are utilizing leverage, this is where you would add that information. Also, one thing to note, that there's a little checkbox down here. So once you complete the table, you'll still have to check this box to indicate that the table's been completed to the best of your knowledge and ability. So if you are adding in leverage, if you're adding in information to this table, and you bypass this checkbox, you still won't be able to mark it as complete. You have to check the box even after you filled out the leverage funds table. So this is if there's leverage funds that's involved here. I'm just going to click no. It'll give me a chance to mark it as complete and to move to the next application form, which is the certifying official. So here it's going to ask, and this is how we put the certifying official name, title, and then you'll have to agree to these terms of acceptance. Whoever the certifying official is here, type their name in, click here for the electronic signature, and put in the date signed utilizing this date picker here. Once you have all of the fields populated, then you'll be able to save and continue, mark as complete.
Hang on a second there, Dan.
Yes, sir.
So scroll back up to the top. I did have a question about this the other day. I apologize I haven't sent a response, so hopefully you're on the WebEx right now. The name here for the certifying official should be the individual that is the certifying individual or official, I'm sorry. So if you're filling it out for someone else, don't put your information, have their information in there. I know that someone had asked what they should do if, because most people are working from home right now, if the certifying official isn't able to be there when they do that, you can always add them as a user and have them specifically fill that section out and mark it as complete. So that is an option to have them do the actual certifying official section themselves, so you're not doing it for someone else. And then there is another question on leverage if you want to go back real quick, Dan.
Yes. So to go back, I'm just going to go to my application forms here at the top of the screen, and that'll allow me to go back to the leverage page. And I'll click yes to open up these fields.
Yep. So the leverage there, the activity, enter in the activity that the leverage is going to be used as. So if you're doing, say you have a loan or some other funding source that you're going to do infrastructure with, or you're going to do new construction with, type in infrastructure there for the activity, then just identify the source and the amount of leverage. There are not activity codes. So the activity is the activity that the leverage is being used for. Hopefully that answers the question. If not, let us know. But I think go ahead and move on, Dan.
Okay. Excellent. So now we're up to our last application form here after the electronic signature. And there's actually nothing to input on this page. This provides us with DED contact information, frequently asked questions, some links that Evan was providing in those slides, some good resources here, and links to the application-specific user guides, the Amplifund information as well. So there's nothing to input on this page. However, it still needs to be marked as completed as verification that it's been read and it's been acknowledged here as well. So Even though there's nothing to input here, remember this form, this page has to be marked as completed as well. So now that takes us to the end of our application forms that we filled out. Again, you can go back and you can click and on the application forms section here, and at any point I can see how I'm doing. So clearly I have 4 out of the 6 as complete, not too bad. I have a couple that are left that are in progress, which means that I still have to fill these out. There's still questions that I have to answer on each page. So we can come back to these later, but I do want to focus now on some of the items that we are probably not so familiar with in terms of interacting with the applicant portal, the budget and the performance plan. So the budget and the performance plan was not a part of the pre-application, but it is very much a part of the full application. I'm going to navigate to the budget by clicking on the budget section right here. And it is going to provide me with the template that I can use to fill out my projected budget. So you'll see here, and I already have an example line item that I filled in, and we're going to fill in some items together. This is where we're going to be able to enter in projected costs for the project. And as I can see here at the top, we'll be able to indicate how much of it is grant funded and how much of it is cash match. So if I want to start adding information and I want to indicate what I'm spending, then let's say I have some information that I'm going to be adding to the home buyer assistance category, for example. I would go and I'd click on the plus sign. Now, right away, right off the bat, I want to point out that there is also a difference between the budget that we fill out for the categories that we select, for the housing activity and for technical assistance. So if you scroll down, if you're applying for technical assistance, there's a category here called technical assistance. If you click the plus sign next to it to start generating items there, it'll even say technical assistance and start giving some instructions. We'll get back to this in a second, but I did want to point out the difference of if I choose that technical assistance category, or if I'm applying for a housing project and I click any one of these, it'll say housing projects. So keep in mind that depending on which activity type we're applying for, we should utilize the categories accordingly. So if I want to start filling out a budget line item, I want to start entering information here about my project costs. I'm going to choose the category I want to indicate that I'm going to be spending on, and I'm going to go ahead and click on the plus sign, so home buyer assistance. It's giving me some instructions here on what to do and how to calculate match if possible. It's also telling me not to enter any ineligible project costs or leverage funds here in this category. So every category that you select will have specific instructions on what to include, what not to include, and what type of program you're applying for. So here I can start indicating and detailing how I'm going to spend for this specific category of home buyer assistance. So you'll put in the name of your projected cost here. So I'm just going to put in an example. You can put in a description of how you're going to be spending those funds here as well. And here you're going to put in the direct cost. So the direct cost is the total amount of spending that you're going to do, including any cash match. So let's say that for this example, I want to indicate that I'm going to spend $10,000 here for whatever this may be. So since I have match set to no, then that means that this is just going to be $10,000, no cash match. I'll click on save. And I can see home buyer example, grant funded $10,000, cash match 0, so gives me total budgeted of $10,000. Now, let's say that I was going to include something that had match in it. So I'm going to click plus again, and maybe I'm adding another category here for home buyer assistance. So home buyer assistance 2, I'm adding another one. And let's say here, I do want to include some cash match. Let's say that the total amount is going to be $10,000, but this time $5,000 of it is going to be match. So I would still indicate here that the total amount is $10,000. If I want to indicate that 5,000 of this, I'm going to match it with 5,000. I'll do calculate match, yes. And here in my match amount, I can either enter the percentage of match funds, or I can enter it as a dollar amount. So if I'm matching this 25%, let's say that I put in 0.25, and it's going to do this calculation for me. Or if it's easier to just put in the dollar amount of cash match, then you can put in the dollar amount. So if I want to say here that that I want to make this that I'm going to spend $5,000, so it changes that here. It shows me the total amount. I entered $10,000. As soon as you enter in the cash match amount, then it changes and it shows us how much is grant funded and how much is match.
Hey, Dan.
Yes.
Just as a suggestion, I would suggest using the dollar as opposed to the percentage when you're doing the match. It just makes it a little cleaner for everyone. So like you can see there, the direct cost, that's going to be the total, which you see down below. The grant funded is $5,000, and you did the dollar amount for $5,000, so total of $10,000 for that total budget. Just a suggestion when you're working through there, and if you have match, I would suggest using the dollar item rather than the percentage. And go ahead.
It's a good suggestion. It's easier for me too to do it like that. So I'm going to go ahead and click Save here. And here's that item that we just created, and I can see that there's 5,000 grant funded, 5,000 match, total of 10,000 for that item. Now, another thing that I want to point out here is, and I'm going to save this first. And I want to go to our project information section. So this was the first thing that we filled out, where we had total amount of award requested and total amount of cash match. So when we're adding information into the budget, I want you to keep in mind the budget that we're filling out and the totals are going to validate against this dollar amount. So for example, if I put in $25,000 of cash match here, then it's not going to let me budget over $25,000 of cash match. Same thing here. We know that out of $100,000 here, $75,000 is grant funded. It's not going to let me add a grant funded amount in the budget over $75,000. So it's important to get those numbers right on that project information page, because then it'll allow us to complete this accordingly. So I'll show you an example of how that validation works too, in case you run into that scenario. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to point out, so here's our totals. Right now I have 20,000 grant funded, 10,000 cash match. So I'm going to add a new line item here. And I'll call it rehab expense. And I'm going to make this direct cost $50,000. Now I'm going to calculate the match, put it as a yes. And I'm going to try to say that $50,000, out of this $50,000, $25,000 is matched. So here I'm going to get an error telling me that if I make this $25,000 match, it's going to cause me to exceed the cash match amount I put on that project information page. Because on this budget, I already have $10,000 of match. So I can only add another $15,000 of match throughout the budget. In that scenario, I was trying to add a match item of $25,000, which would have put me over the match amount. So that validation, and I'll just do it again. That validation tells me that this item's cash match amount can't exceed $15,000. That's the amount of match I have left to put on my budget. So getting the totals right in that project information section will allow us to have the most success here on this part of the budget as well. And you'll see that now it tells me I can't exceed $15,000 if I reduce this to $10,000 cash match, for example. Now it likes me a little bit better, and it likes that number a little bit better. Type in a name. And I'll go ahead and click Save. So at any point, you can also check, use this table. It shows the grant funded amount, shows the cash match amount and the total budgeted, and it all totals up down here as well. Again, I want to point out number 13, technical assistance, are for technical assistance programs. So if you have a technical assistance activity, come here and fill this out. Same rules and same guidelines apply. You fill it out the same way, where you type in the amount, put in the total amount, grant funded plus cash match. If there's match, click yes, fill that out, and click save. So no difference, just that this is required if you're doing the technical assistance. And there's also our additional eligible NAHTF activities here at the bottom as well. So this is the budget template. Feel free to submit questions via the chat function. I'm going to move on to the performance plan, but I'm going to go ahead and save this example right here. And here is our performance plan. So the performance plan is going to allow us to enter in and access different ways that we can measure how we're going to go about it. Now again, here we have distinguishing performance plan items based upon if it's a housing project or a technical assistance project. So these are all specific to if you're filling out a housing project application. This is specific to if you're doing a technical assistance program. And these are going to be required regardless. These are for housing project or technical assistance. So regardless of the type of application you're filling out, these have to be completed, and they have an asterisk indicated right there as well. So let's just talk a little bit about some of these performance plan goals and how we can add information into them. It's going to ask you here if you're doing a housing project, number of units. In order to start adding information to this performance plan goal, click Add Goal. You can give the goal a name, so proposed number of units. And then you can indicate how many units you're planning on achieving. And you can also type in a description here as well, if necessary, if you want. But these are the required fields when choosing and when entering proposed number of units. Here on the percentage of AMI, again, you'll have the ability to put in, percentage of AMI. the number to be achieved here. You can click Save. Amount of rent, same concept, where you'll put in amount of rent and put in the number. So these are required fields regardless of housing project or TA activity. Leverage funds. So it gives us some guidance and some instructions here about leverage funds. So here's where you would enter those leverage funds in here. I would probably just name this leverage funds, and I would put in the amount. That's just an example right there. Completion dates, this is also required. And I made a reference to this when we were going through the third application form, that there was part of a narrative, one of the narrative questions that we answered was also going to prompt us to put in milestone goals. So we had milestones to fill out in that, and we can also add in the different milestones and completion dates here. So whereas the last ones were asking us for specific numbers, this is going to ask us for dates. So whatever milestones you may have, you can name it accordingly, and then choose the date that you plan to accomplish it. I'm just choosing random dates here, and click Save. So make sure you're putting in those completion dates here. If you want to add more, we've already added one. I can just go in here, click the plus sign, and I can continue adding more. Here for technical assistance. So if you're filling out a technical assistance, this is for you. Identify 5 to 7 goals that you intend to achieve through the support of this nonprofit technical assistance application. So again, this comes from one of the questions in part 3, and you click plus to add the goal. You can name the goal here, and you have at your discretion the ability to identify how you're going to track this goal. So we saw milestones, so like if these are milestones, then you can utilize the date feature. However, you can also utilize the number feature, which we saw before. So if it's something numeric, like number achieved, I'm just putting in something generic there, and you can type in the number. You also have the ability to type in percentages. So if you're planning on reaching a specific percentage, you can type that in here as a decimal. I want to get to 75% full assistance, so you would be able to type that in there. If you know that you're at a specific percentage and you need to get to another percentage, then you can choose percent change. So if I go here and I click percent change, then I can say, well, I want to get to 75%, and I'm currently at 25%. So part of my program is I'm looking for a 50% increase, for example. So with these technical assistance 5 to 7 goals, you have the ability to change how you're tracking these and the different metrics that are involved. And then if there's any other specific goals, these are of course optional, but if there's any other information that you want to share with DED about your project, you can add them here as well. Of course, once the required goals are entered in here, once you've completed this, this is no different than any other section. Mark as complete in order to indicate that this section has been completed. So that's all the different sections. Oh, I just clicked there. That's all the different sections of the application form. When you're done and when you're ready to submit, you'll go to your submit page, and it'll tell you the name of your application. You'll be able to click the review button here, which will allow you to download your application and application materials. This is a good warning message here. It is telling me that I cannot submit. So here's the submit button, and you'll see it's not allowing me to click submit because I have not completed all sections and all required fields have not been populated in all forms. And again, a good way to tell if you're able to submit or not is if every one of these circles has a check mark in it. So I remember I did not complete the budget section. I completed it, but I remember that I didn't mark it as complete. Now I've marked it as complete. Now when I go to the submit page, there's a check mark in there. So now it's really just telling me that the application form section is what I have left here. So once you submit, you'll get an email indicating that your application has been successfully submitted with the date and the timestamp. You'll be brought to a successful submit page, which again will allow you to again download your application. You can always log in and access your application and download it at any time, but once it is submitted, you will not be able to make any changes to it. And like Evan mentioned before, if you do not submit by the deadline, then the apply button will go away, the submit button will go away, and you will not be able to submit after the deadline has passed.
Hey, Dan, can you hop back into the performance plan real quick?
Yeah.
So question we had here, if the performance plan is basically replacing the implementation plan. So in the past, we always have the implementation schedule that was an additional item for the application. The performance plan, so throughout the application, there's narratives and sections where you're going to identify like your milestones, your timeline, all of that is carried over into the performance plan. And then if your application is awarded, that information will then carry over into the implementation section. So if you're awarded, the items that you enter into the performance plan will be used basically within your contract and the application. So like if you identified you were going to number of units there, you're going to do 8. So in the contract, it's going to go off of your performance plan there. It'll go into the contract in that. So. Are you guys still there? Dan, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Evan.
So I had a message from someone about losing me, but it came from me. So I don't know if everybody's still there or not. If you can't hear us, again, we're going to make this available as a recording. So sorry for the technical issues. Hopefully you guys can hear me though. Okay, go ahead, Dan.
So I was about wrapped up in terms of going through the application and submitting. And again, once you've submitted, you'll still be able to log in and see your application and be able to print it, download all the application materials as well. And at any time, in any area here, you can click download and you'll be able to download your application. So Evan, I don't have any other areas to cover here unless there's anything specific you wanted me to talk about, but we can open it up and.
Yeah, let's. I'm just going to open it up real quick for if anybody has a question real quick about this system or the functionality within the system. If you want to ask that now while we have Dan kind of talking. Otherwise, like I had mentioned before, when we get into the regional workshops, we'll jump into this a little bit more and kind of work through specific items or questions you might have about the actual content. But with Dan here right now, he's able to help with functionality of it. So if you have a question, let us know real quick. All right, not seeing anything. Oh, yep, one quick question about the technical grant. Go ahead. I'm assuming you're working on your question here real quick. I'll hold on for another second. Okay, Dan, can you jump back in? Yeah, to the application forms. So you had the 1,300 is what's in there. And just a technical issue on our end. I'm going to clarify and see if we can get that information back out to you. Thank you for catching that. And we do have another question, a couple questions. So do we submit a separate application for technical grant and trust funds? So if you're submitting a technical assistance application as well as a housing project application, you need an application for each of those. So every type of project or application you're submitting, it's going to be a different application in the system. And then one more thing here. So the applicant attachments and page numbers, when you are referencing a specific attachment, so say right there, the applicant specific uploads, you have just type in applicant 1. In the narrative you're writing and you're talking, you're going to reference see applicant 1 and then the specific page number of that upload. So every upload that you have, they'll have their own page numbers. You don't need to have like a running number of each upload. So each upload has its own page numbers. So each upload start at page 1, whatever. The next upload is going to start at page 1. Then when you reference, so like applicant 1, see page 10. See applicant 2, page 2. So you don't need to have a running total of the narratives. Hopefully that answers your question there. I think that's what you were asking. Anything else in the system? Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, Dan. I definitely appreciate it. You've been a major help with the implementation of this. Sorry, one more question. So each upload start over on the page numbers, yes. I am going to take control back from you here, Dan.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. Appreciate the opportunity, and good luck to everyone on your applications.
Yeah. If you guys have questions specifically to Amplifund or for Amplifund, I think that help button most of the time is going to go through to Dan. So if we're not able to help out here in the office, we'll always be able to get information from Dan or from Amplifund as well. I am going to just readjust a couple things here real quick. Okay. I do have the questions on the slides for today. I don't intend to go through them. I know everybody's able to read these, but if anyone has a specific question right now about one of the questions, let me know and I'll go to it and we can just touch base on it. Otherwise, I have a few more slides just to finish up. So hopefully you've had a chance to read the questions. I'll just give you guys a second to send a message if you have one. Okay. I'm just going to jump through these real quick. Couple more slides here. We already touched base on the public hearing. It is not required this year given the COVID-19 situation. But again, the application has got to be made available to the public to receive any input. The documentation, we need a summary how it was made available and any feedback from the public. And please make sure you identify if no feedback was provided. And then, like I mentioned when we were in the system there, just upload that same documentation 3 times. Unfortunately, we're not able to go back in there and change that at this time. We do have a couple questions here real quick. So one question, referencing page numbers and narratives since an online application. You only need to reference page numbers if you're referencing something from an upload. So if you're talking about something from the housing study or another documentation that you're uploading, and there's a specific page you want us to look at, reference that page. Otherwise, you don't need to say page numbers about the actual online system there. So another question here about natural disaster area. Is the COVID-19 epidemic a natural disaster? Our department has not had an opportunity to discuss that, so I do not have an answer at this time. Okay. Again, most of this information was discussed when we were in the system. The system's always going to prompt any uploads that are required. Again, you have 4 uploads per section. So if you have additional information you need to upload or reference that's not required, you can upload up to 4 per section. And then the application guidelines, any forms, project calculators, the rental pro forma, and the FAQ, they're all available here at this link here on our website. And then Corky is going to leave it open to any questions you guys might have. Not seeing anything right now. Again, we did record this, so we'll upload it to the website again. It'll probably be under this page here again, like the pre-application upload was, or the pre-application WebEx was. The questions we received, we'll make that information available too. I know we had a few questions that we weren't quite able to address right now, but we'll get responses and information out about that. Otherwise, the regional workshops, they'll be starting here soon. So if you didn't get an email or an invite from your program reps, or you're not sure what date it's scheduled, just reach out and we'll make sure to get that information to you. All right, well, I don't think we have anything else. So we'll go ahead and finish up. I appreciate everybody participating today. Again, apologies for the technical issues. Maybe someday we'll get it figured out. Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and end the meeting. Thank you, everyone.